Okay, and welcome back. We're picking up where we left off last time in Field Glory Empires as Persia, where in the last part, Athens has decided to surrender, but not to us. Rather, they have surrendered to Sparta. So to win the war, to complete our objective, of which we have 15 turns left to do it, we have to defeat Sparta. We have to get a negotiated settlement with Sparta, and or basically annex in their entirety both Athens and Sparta. So that's a potentially fairly high ask. We have our troop assignments already assigned diplomacy-wise. We are at war with Athens. They are client state of Sparta, so we have to negotiate with Sparta. We started new negotiations with Egypt. I don't yet have enough war score against Sparta to negotiate with Sparta. Thracia, we could negotiate with. We'll just propose a white peace with them. Some of the rebels started to conflict with us. We've proposed a treaty with Argos. If they say no to them, we'll have to actually go and siege them down, which will be a little bit of its own issue. And then EU, I believe, previously were someone's client state. We can get it as a regular peace with you. So with that, I think we're back to going through all the buildings. All the territories to make sure we're building buildings if we have them to build. Remembering to set that timer going. So in the capital area, we got 2 places with 1 building slot open. We only have figs there, so there's only 8 food. Although that's probably up there and as good as it's gonna get because it's an oasis place that is a desert. Sure, we'll take the orchard. It's 8 food, it could be better, but 8 food's better than no food. Seed storage, providing 11 food. Again, that's probably pretty good. We already have the ability to import tools, although there is no tools locally. Maybe not going to go up far enough in the industry buildings to do that. So yeah, we'll take the tool manufacturer instead of the seed storage. Trade center, that's acumen. Or tribunal. We'll go tribunal. Oh, and we presumably want to accelerate the construction of that. There we go. Move 60 infrastructure, 66 infrastructure, culture. Oh, up here in the food places, not surprisingly, we have a new people. I'm not sure if we need the papyrus this far north. Oh, well, we don't need it here because we take it across the Caspian Sea, right? When we have everyone on food, this is food positive. It's maybe not a good sign because we don't always have people all on food. So we'll pass on that for the food option. In the future, this will probably be positive regardless of what we do. Right, if we've got the large farm, and we've got the granary, we've got the seed farm, the seed storage, and so on, right? It'll probably be food positive regardless. You probably want Brickworks Wheelmaker. Let's do a reroll here. In which case, we'll just leave everyone on food because we're got enough infrastructure to do a reroll without shuffling people around. Grab the Sacred Estate. It's going to turn food and infrastructure into culture. That's fine. And we don't need that much infrastructure to do that, so everyone on to culture. New slot there. can grab the school. There we go. Should build the school in a turn, yeah. Trade center, again, we're not super interested in a trade center. Take the amphitheater, because at least it's a 0-slot upgrade. The only reason not to build the amphitheater if we didn't have Silken Range. Really. How close are we? Oh, it's just that level of expensive, okay. I don't think we're going to be able to do it in a turn. We'll be able to do it in 2. But you all mostly back on culture. Yep. We want to access the next tier of military buildings and pick up the weapon depot. We can probably pass on this here. We'll do the market, start to work up the commerce line. Yeah. Work at the commerce line. Oh, there's the large farm showing up again. Where we can pick it up, it is probably worth picking up. There we go. I'll complete the turn. Seed storage, yeah, because we got grain and nuts. That's not the slave market, or that's not the commerce building we want. We pretty much want anything but the slave market. It could be better. We don't really need money in culture. We're looking for big culture buildings mostly. And you can see we have the Colosseum, the second palace. We got some big hitters we could hit. What's the health up to here? 65%. Okay, so we don't need any more health. What can we hit food-wise? This, the canals, the house, the field, the M4 fabricator. So if we wanted to slow the food roll, we probably want to hit the M4 fabricator. The large area is the only thing we can hit on that. Don't need any more of those buildings. Yeah, none of those are really worth even hitting. I'm going to do a reroll here. There's a couple things we could hit. Most of them are commerce culture buildings. Although there is... I'd take the irrigation canals or the Emperor Fabricator if we got presented with them. Lesbos. Brickworks is really not the building we want. We'll take the guard tower, just get the military XP in the meantime. Okay, that's not too bad. We don't need the Wolseley now, but we might want it in the future, so we'll take it. This will provide us our 6th military building, which then means we can be rolling for the very valuable military leadership sort of buildings, which are in Tier 3. So let's pick up the Siege Workshop. Phoenicia. We still got a lot of conversion to go through, so we don't want to do the Thassalon Temple. could do the harbor upgrade. That wouldn't necessarily be a waste. We could potentially do the quarry upgrade. We'll do the harbor upgrade. It's a 0 slot, so it's not going to take up any slots. That's probably overbuilding for it, but we're not going to worry too much about it. Swap these guys over to culture, now that we finally built up the province. Although this is a province that apparently is making a lot of food, so we're going to have to stop every once in a while to redirect and build the new buildings as they come online. Oop, I need to leave 16 on infrastructure, or 16 value of infrastructure. That should be enough. Babylonia has an open building slot. Babylonia can hit some very valuable buildings. Trading house really isn't a good one. We don't need the culture here from Worship Place. Although this is good as it gets for that building type. The Colosseum, the second palace are both available options. I'll probably just do the reroll here. In which case we don't need any infrastructure, so we can toss a bunch of the infrastructure back over to food production. Grab the barracks, which will be done in turn, and that may be the last building we build up there for quite a while. We can do a little bit of loyalty, so we'll take the Tribune. Brickworks. Work towards the regional roads. And then Wheelmakers could work towards the regional roads. Large mill will be done next turn. And that will be a pretty productive mill. We don't have the fish adjacency, although this is a coastal area, so picking up fish as one of the commerce buildings later would not be a bad idea. Sure, we'll grab that building. Oh, and we did finally clear. The rumor of a snowman has been cleared. So you're clear, you're clear. Where's the negative province modifiers? Apparently at some point I just stopped paying attention to whether or not we cleared it. So it's cleared, and I can now move this army someplace else to do the same elsewhere. Trying to look for nagging little province modifiers where I can send troops to deal with it. Or actually thinking about it, how much do you need? 100 value. That might be hard for the mountain guys to do. When they're not in the mountains. Reasonably speaking, right? It's, yeah, they're really good at working in the mountains. Are they currently in the mountains? No. They might not be very productive then. We'll try to merge those guys up, and then we might march them down just to camp out on that location. Yeah, there's a couple of those around. That aren't necessarily the easiest to remove, but we can at least remove that one. Okay, where were we? We were going to the provinces 27, 28 in the Delta. Mill is tempting. 17 food mill. And on the 17 food mill. This is the Delta, so if we play our cards right, we're gonna be making food hand over fist. It does seem to be what we're doing. which then supports a large population, which then allows you to do a bunch of other stuff. Coinmaker should be done this turn. Although overhauling a little bit of infrastructure would not be a bad idea, because it's going to have another thing to build next turn. Can import the copper, that brings up to 6 commerce buildings. Ptolemaeus. Oh, there's a province named Ptolemaeus. I'm like, Ptolemaeus? Do not know there's a nation named Ptolemaeus. The answer is no, it's the province named Ptolemaeus. The provinces are obviously still have the names from the later scenario where Ptolemaeus would make sense as a province name. Maybe a little early for a place to be called Ptolemaeus in Egypt, the Egypt area. Grab the furnace, or the commerce building. You probably want to fortify there, so we don't just lose that later to the Egyptians. Yeah, that place is fine. We're going to get some more food, so we can take the last half of food again. And this is the last province where we'll do a training run. And then we'll check for idols, and we do have an idol in one of the occupied Egyptian locations. Honestly, some of these are just kind of like, pick a vaguely semi-useful thing and then move on because we're maybe not using them. And we got battle plans. So that's all the buildings. Let's enact the battle plans. Okay. Storming the Egyptian fort there. Complete destruction of the garrison, that's good. This is the Spartan field garrison, because they pulled their army back apparently. There we go, another location lost to the Athenians. At this point, I think Athens only has the island and Athens. After some delay, client state of Colchis is supporting Persia against those guys. I'm in the middle of negotiating a peace with them, so we'll see how long this war actually lasts. Okay, army's going to start marching back down towards Athens and Sparta. Argos is now under siege, although much like Athens, the siege group here does not have the capacity to actually take it by siege. We'll in fact have to take it by storm. So what we're going to order here is we're going to try to storm that fortress in, well, the very minor Spartan fortress in Achaia. And then Atticus. The siege at Atticus has actually been going well for the Athenians. They have managed to repair one of their walls. Although it is now properly under siege, with food issues beginning to mount. Although at this rate it'll still take like 14-15 turns for them to surrender. It's a little slow, that's behind schedule for us. We'll do Forge the Land there, Adopt Administration there. Okay, so we'll march down to there. I may try to do a cheeky landing in the Athenian settlement on the island there. But otherwise, I just basically just come down here and try to help with the Athenian Spartan fight. Egypt-wise, next turn is the turn we're supposed to find out what the Egyptian response is. Again, move as if the answer will be no. Much greater chance that it will be yes at this point. They only control 5 territories, one of which is ours. So that one's probably not working very well for them. We'll reduce that down to 2 on the next turn if they say no. And that's the fleet movements, fleet and troop movements. The one that we've actually got blockading Athens is going to have some supply issues going forward. It can probably, if we need it to, stay on station for about 3 turns. Hopefully within that time we'll have Achaia here stormed, and then we'll start receiving food there to keep the fix the food supply issue. And then the army, of course, will continue towards Laconia, going to Arcadia next. For that, we go through all the building, or all the provinces, check to see if we got stuff to build. We can build an ivory farm, which we don't need in the capital. We literally do not need in the capital. We have the Castrum Elephantium, which does the same thing for us. It basically does the same thing. It's just the military version of it. This one's the national wonder. This is you get one for, well, you get 1 random emporium every time you do that decision. Do the emporium portion of that decision. 51 culture from the scriptorium. Not the worst of choices. Not the best of choices. If I'm really desperate for food, we'll have to go like build things like ranch and stuff like that, which I really don't want to do. That's kind of the problem with this this province we've got. We got arid steppes, desert, hill, hill, hill. So there's no good farm provinces. Yeah, so it's probably the scriptorium. Probably the scriptorium, or we re-roll, or I take a food building just because I want 3 food buildings to get access to better food buildings. I think we'll do the scriptorium. It is 51 culture. It's not bad that way. Here we're being presented with the Marble Emporium, which we really don't need here. There's other places where we might want a Marble Emporium. This is not it. Worship place, this gives access to tier 3 culture. In theory, if we roll enough times, we'd get paved road as well, which is a tier 3 building. Those are the 4 things we'd be looking for, is the tier 3 culture buildings and the paved road in the long run. Amphitheater. Sure. Then enough to finish in a turn. No, amphitheater is a decently expensive building to build. Put everything on, we might do it. Yeah, everything on, it does it in 1 turn. No building slot there. We don't need the loyalty because we're at 100 loyalty. Every once in a while, I've got to take an so we'll take it. It's okay. Done in turn, on to the next. Seed storage. Good enough. 11 more food. Not going to complain, 11 more food. Do you probably want another culture building? Or another commerce building? We are in purple range, so that's just a good thing to do. Do that one. Cool. Next. Press in here, new build slot. Grab the Sulfur Emporium. I don't necessarily see the reason not to build the Sulfur Emporium. Although, we have sulfur somewhere, don't we? Can I look at what needs sulfur? Trade detail, sulfur. Really? Really? Large quarry, and large quarry is the only things that interact with sulfur, apparently. Well, that's bad. That doesn't really work to our benefit. Yeah, that's a way. So yeah, we can grab the Sulfur Emporium, but I don't think that's worth it, right? That would basically say that we need like 3 large quarries next to it. I don't have 3 large quarries next to it because it's only a bonus resource, and apparently quarry is the only thing that provides benefits from it. So I need 2 to break even, 3 to make profit, and we got 1. So no, we're gonna pass up the sulfur. We'll take the Persian place instead. Academy. Which is decently expensive, so we're gonna put everyone on construction for the moment. Regional roads. Never a bad thing when it comes up. Won't warehouse, regional roads, land expansion. So we can get into the tier 3, so we can build the Builder's Guild so we can get the thing going. So yeah, we're going to do a reroll there. Which means we don't need people on infrastructure, which is fine. No one's on infrastructure. Three open slots. Irrigation canals, which are making a lot of food because people are on food, but even when we take them off of food, 33 food from the canals. There we go. Canals will be done in turn. You need Siege Workshop to go to that. We'll take Public Works as the reroll. Farm on the island wouldn't be bad. I mean, it's not the best of farming spots, but 10 food per spawn is decent. And grab the Furs Emporium. I think we have furs. And in fact, can already be imported from Galatia, so we apparently have furs somewhere. Somewhere nearby. That's cloth. There's furs. What needs furs? Oh, that's the leather. Natural trade good. Structures that use this trade good as a bonus. So apparently it is only a bonus resource. Trading post, trade house, clothing manufacturer. So I can't move it around. So okay, then it probably means it's reasonable to build it someplace where it's at least not like the neighbor circle doesn't include another fur. And those are stuff that come up reasonably often. I know both trading post and trading house only come up if you have the bonus. Have one of the bonuses. So, for example, putting the furs here already is only a -6, and then we're going to increase the likelihood that we can get other bonuses next to it in the neighboring places. So, yeah, take the Fur Emporium. Seven open slots there. Grab the bridge for 30 extra money. Probably want the large mill, want the seed storage, want the M4 fabricator, don't really want the rest. Let's do courthouse. Do large walls there as a reroll. And then we'll upgrade the port. Venetia. Does have granary, does have a plane next door, so it could at some point, and probably will at some point, get access to grain, so that'll make the granary decent. Grab the line expansion. We could do the Furs Emporium here. I'm not sure if we actually have 2 Furs Emporium in the pull. It probably does actually make sense to build the Furs Emporium here if we could. Although this one isn't going to make money from start, so we'll probably pass up on it for the moment. Do reroll. We're getting it offered here. Here it actually is providing some money, so here we'll take it. And obviously we don't need it in both spots. You need it in one or the other, don't do both. Here, one of the neighbors has something, and I believe it's the clothing manufacturer. Yeah, so we get the 7 there. And then you take land expansion. Okay. 1 opens lot. Probably wants to be like the preceptor house. Although, oh, that's a good garum shop. Hemp field or M4 fabricator. Probably the only agriculture building we'll take at this point is the M4 fabricator, just to make a bunch of money off of it. Because we basically hit all the food buildings at this point. We'll do the brickworks. Do the school. Large mill will be done next turn. Judea. Land expansion. Ooh, plantation. 50 more food is tempting. Also the necropolis. 73 culture. We'll... Yeah, we'll take the necropolis. The plantation's likely to come up again. Just because we're going to go through all the farm buildings at some point. Whereas the necropolis, if we build that slot up, probably won't come up again. Because we'll never have 2 slots again. Clear you is the armorer. We didn't hit the armor. This is a place where, in theory, we can get skirmishers. We're not likely to build these skirmishers over the archer skirmishers, but we can get elsewhere, but might as well get the archery range in case we change our mind on that. Okay, now we're on to the loose, which are going to be mostly places that we're occupying. And apparently this place, at this point, I actually have enough from taking over stuff from the Athenians to make a province there, make a province here. Okay, so let's go ahead and progress the turn. We'll see how our military actions continue. Our fleet goes up against an Athenian fleet. This shouldn't be a real issue. Yeah. This is the assault going in against the small Spartan garrison. Oh, we lost our good attack general. The 2-0 died in the assault. So now we're defending the hills with no general. Okay, inflicted minor losses on the Spartans and drove them back. Oh, and we now... So the Egyptians did accept our peace treaty. Thracia and Persia are now at peace. Argos and Persia are now at peace. Egypt and Persia are now at peace. Sparta is proposing peace. Probably not the peace we want. Counter-proposal. We only got 21 war scores. And 38 war scores. Yeah, they're not going to give us what we want. Because we want Atticus and Laconia. And, yeah, no, they're not going to willingly accept that. Welcome their new ruler, a poor administrator. May he not live long, be the shame. Buy some slaves. People of Persia have honored their former ruler, building another royal tomb. And that is victory. So we're not going to finish the war against Greece because we're going to win. Through cunning and martial prowess, our nation Persia has achieved its objectives, and we are declared the winner because with our victory over Egypt, we took 1,000 and a bit legacy over from Egypt, and we now triple them. So my concern that there isn't the sudden death mechanic on this scenario is in fact wrong. I'm pretty sure... The reason I was thinking wasn't sure if there was a sudden death mechanic on this scenario is I think there's been situations in the past where I would have otherwise lost. I guess the AI maybe can't win by the sudden death mechanic. That might be the mechanic going on that I'm thinking of. Because yeah, there's definitely times I've been playing this scenario where I'm like looking at the sudden death mechanic. It's like, oh, Egypt has so much score I should have lost in the past when I've played it. Usually Macedonia. But yeah, we won that scenario. 229 Persian units, 161 regions, so we almost had more troops. Only barely had more troops than the region count. We were making a lot of money. We made a lot of culture, 500,000 culture. We had one turn where we were at peace. I think it was the longest peace. And then we were at any time most 9 wars. So yeah, we could in theory, I think, keep playing if we wanted to say beat the Spartans here. I think we would be beating the Spartans here. We've got the assault plans vaguely down. These guys would get a new general. Of course, the new general wouldn't be as good as the old general. They'd go Parco on Acadia. We'd negotiated peace with Argos, so this army maybe would attempt to make a run at Laconia. We're sieging Atticus. Now that we have Achaia, we can feed the fleet to blockade the port, so they're going to starve. We're going to win. It might take 9 to 10 turns, so we might not have enough time to do it before the objective is done, but we should be winning that war. But we've won the game. So that is Persia, if you watch the entire series. Persia, obviously in the Rise of Persia scenario, Persia is sort of an explosive opener. This is the scenario where you're rising. So you're taking lots of territory really quickly. You go from a tiny little 3-province minor to, well, if you're winning, to this. In this scenario, obviously, to win, Egypt starts with 7,500 legacy. So to win early, which is what we did, we actually had to take legacy off of Egypt. Otherwise, we would have needed like another 13,000 legacy, which is not feasible without taking it from someone. And obviously, if you're going to take it from someone, you should take it from a square leader, right? So we took from Egypt. We never got old enough to get any score from government. We were up to 2 legions with over 15 regions with over 15,000 culture. We had 35 with over 5,000. We had 81 with over 1,000. We only have 1,600 or 161 territories, so or 161 regions. So what? That's 8. 118 territories were scoring on culture. So we only had like 43? No, 33. 118. Yeah, like 33. There's only like 33 territories in our entire country that don't have more than 1,000 culture. Right. So we were doing a pretty decent job at getting culture everywhere. Now, some of them are going to be places like up here where it's like, yeah, this was a border region that we were mostly fortifying. And even some of the ones up here, like, that's more than 1,000. That's a scoring one. That's a pretty recent gain. And of course, some of the Egyptian ones didn't have like a wonder to take over. They're not over 1,000. Babylon is only in the 2nd rank. They're second rank one. You're in the 3rd rank, so you're one of the 3. So those are the 2 that are scoring 3. Is the capital and Chaldea. Babylon. I'm surprised because Babylon's got a lot of the better wonders. Although wonders usually just straight give you legacy; they don't necessarily have a lot of culture on them. Unless the national wonders, right? The national wonders often give you a lot of culture. This is a national wonder, for example, so it's giving us 100-something culture. Of course, this one also gives no legacy, right? So the way this one gives you legacy is by getting your culture high enough that you score from the territory. Didn't get close enough to get +4. Get +4, you need 50,000. 50,000 is a little bit of a stretch. In the shorter scenario. So yeah, that is victory. Twitch chat says it looks reminiscent of Victoria, if I maybe come out of the Civ a bit. You're talking. I've only played Victoria 2 and 3, so I don't know how much it looks like Victoria 1. I wouldn't necessarily say this looks a lot like Victoria. Maybe Victoria 2. Yeah, this is an interesting game. Had quite a bit of fun. This is the 3rd run recorded for YouTube and Twitch. The first was done as Rome in the base scenario. So obviously you start off as Rome over here. The second one we played as Sparta. Sparta was very interesting to play. Oh, the map overview reminds you of Victoria. Yeah, I can see that. I could also imagine it reminding you Vic 2 or Vic 3, yeah. It's a 4X-y sort of map, right? So I could also see it reminding you of like what, Imperador, which was their one set in this time period as well. It's also a pretty similar map to, I think, the older CK2, CK3 maps. Was vaguely this map shape. An area. But yeah, so this is the 3rd run, which we played as Persia. So the last one we played as Sparta, and our main opponent was Persia. This time we played as Persia, and as I sort of brought up earlier in the run, Persia doesn't really have to come fight Sparta Athens. We were doing it because we got an objective to do it, not because we needed to. The big person we needed to fight was Egypt, which is why we just won with another victory over Egypt, because we were able to triple the legacy from them. So we've got 15,000, they've got less than 5,000, so we have 3 times more than them. That is why we have won. And yeah, we got 1,160 legacy off the last turn from the peace deal with Egypt. We controlled 13 of our objectives, meaning we're actually tied for first in objectives. And then, of course, we acquired a bunch of wonders. Some of the ones that start on the map are the big ones, right? There's the basically 8 points in Babylonia, the 5 at the Tower of Babel. We built the Temple of Solomon. Oh no, we had one of our events respawned Judea, and they built the temple, and then we inherited it from them. We built the King of Kings Palace, we built the court, built the tomb, built the engineering school, the great mills, and so on and so forth. Twitch chat's going, that whole era of military history is interesting. Are you talking about the Roman classical era, or are you talking about the Victoria era? I have in the past run Victoria 3 on stream, though it has been a while. I know they've released another patch. Kind of waiting for the patches to be done to the new one, because some of the stuff looked like it could have made some stuff a little bit frustrating with revolts and stuff. Which is why I haven't started up a run with the Victoria 3 yet on the current patch. Persian the Greeks, yeah, the Persian Greeks area is pretty interesting. The next time we play this, we'll probably pop back to the Roman era, rather than the Persian era here. Although at some point I probably will want to play Macedonia, try to do an Alexander. Although Alexander is a much harder start. You start as a 1-province start, which is a tier 1 government instead of a tier 2 government like Sparta and Athens. You start with no legacy, or with no legacy, whereas Sparta and Athens starts with 2,500. And you're still going to have to fight Persia, because the AI for Persia is pretty good on this map, in this scenario. But yeah, an explosive... Persia tends to do an explosive opener. You fight Medea early on, and if you can occupy their capital, they basically surrender to you everything. You took over Elam, you took over Babylon. Egypt's a little bit more complicated to fight, and Lydia is a little bit more complicated to fight. But then that's basically the Fertile Crescent and Asia Minor as your sort of starting empire. And of course, very rapidly expanding like that, it gives you administrative burden, an extreme administrative burden problem that you want to fix by generating more revenue. Which is one of the reasons it looks like we're making a lot of money is one of our national trait modifiers we've got kicked in right now is Virtuous Administration. If this ever wears off, we're probably not making money for quite a while, until we can get it back, or until we just make a lot more money. So this is definitely, yeah, it's an explosive growth, but it's a very we have to expand sort of growth, right? If this goes away, and you can only get this by playing a regional decision on recently conquered territory, then the big thing here is administrative burdens reduced by 50%. Right, so we're paying 7,500 in administrative burden. That's after the 50% reduction, right? So we'd not be making money if we didn't have that. Granted, the administrative burden partially is modified by how wealthy you are. So the wealthier you are, so the more money you have in the treasury, the worse it gets. Twitch chat asking, is there a time or year limit? And there is a time limit in this scenario. I believe it is 220 turns. So I think roughly you have from when Persia starts rising to when Alexander would have finished conquering the Persian Empire to play this scenario. So it's about 220 game years in this scenario. In the base scenario, which is the Rome, sort of the standard Rome scenario, I believe it is a 500-year turn limit. And then depending on how you play, right, like, we're only on 139 turns in. We were able to win via the sudden death rules, sudden victory rules, by tripling the second place by a triple in Legacy. Normally, if you don't cause that rule to kick in, you win by score at the end of turns. So in this scenario, it's 220 turns, 220-ish turns. And then in the other scenario, the base scenario, it's 500 turns. And then there's a third, like, really short scenario that's sort of meant to be, I think it's the Pyrrhic campaigns. So Pyrrhus of Epirus historically did like an invasion of Rome. So that scenario has some extra early end conditions that makes it end early. Needless to say, if you're in that scenario, there's like very specific nations you want to play. You want to either play Epirus, or you want to play Rome, or you don't want to just play like Scotland or something. You don't want to play the Picts because you're not going to win that scenario. But you could play the Picts in this scenario. And the Picts are kind of interesting to play in the Roman scenario where it's a 500 turn game. Because with 500 turns, you have enough time to actually do something with the Picts. Whereas in the shorter one, you probably don't. And even in this one, you maybe don't. If you apply the sudden death rule to yourself. I don't think the AI can win by the sudden death rule. But yeah, so that's why we've won on turn 139 instead of having to go out to the max turn date. And then yeah, I think this scenario either finishes when the base scenario would normally start, which is the Roman era scenario, or it finishes like a couple years early. I'm not sure exactly when it ends, but yeah, it's that sort of time period when it ends. And then the base one starts the time period where you've got Rome rising in the west, and you've got sort of the remains of Alexander's empire is already fragmented into its segments. So you've got Macedonia, you have Ptolemaic Egypt, you have the Seleucids? I forget the dynasty ruling over Persia, and you have I forgot his name in the middle. So you've basically got the four Diadochi fighting it out over Alexander's empire. And historically, I think the guy in the middle loses. The Seleucids come sweeping in. The Romans at this point get involved, screwing with these guys, screwing with Macedonia. They end up like annexing Greece, facing the Macedonian one. At some point, they like win against the Seleucids and like get, or I think it's the Seleucids, and get all of this area except the guys over here end up getting like backdoored by the Parthians to make the Parthian Empire. And then Cleopatra is actually the last monarch of the Ptolemaic Egyptians, if you know Cleopatra. So that's all stuff that happens in the base scenario sort of timeline. Although you don't necessarily recreate that in the base scenario timeline. It's kind of hard to recreate what the Romans get up to. The Romans get up to some stuff, let's just say. And it's not, like, in game terms, it's hard to recreate that without railroading. Yeah, that's the scenario. We've won. Our economy is doing real well. We got plenty of manpower to field basically endless armies. We've got plenty of metal to equip them with weapons and tools. We're making enough money that, well, granted, we're making money because we have good modifiers on. Right, so if our virtuous administration would ever go awry, we wouldn't be able to maintain this level of treasury. But we're still making decent money. And that's the scenario. I think in the Sparta one, I think we actually ran out to the time limit, for example, because it was much harder to get Sparta going to fight Persia than it is to get Persia to fight Egypt in practice. But yeah, and then Persia does have some semi-unique units. I don't think the close fighters are necessarily unique. I think other people get the close fighters. But they get these Immortals, which are reasonably good. City defenders and city attackers. These, I think, are recruit everywhere, but they get higher costs the more you buy of them. The more you recruit. Once you get into tier 3, once you get into Empire tier, you get... Can I find some of my regular heavy infantry? You get close fighters, which are a little bit weaker, but you don't have a scaling purchase cost to build these, so you can basically build as many of these as you want. One thing I maybe didn't take advantage of enough was the Persian medium infantry, much like the Roman heavy infantry, have a ranged attack, which is a abnormality. This means if you can mass enough of these guys, they do quite decent front line work, even with the archers behind them, because you can basically get range attack off the front line and the back line, which works pretty well. You can also, if you need to cheap out, you can run Immortals and these guys will skirmish from the back row. They're obviously not as good as these archers. And then a lot of the provinces in the area here have archers. Provincial archers are pretty good because they usually have +2 to support bonuses, if not +3. I think most of these are +3, which is really good for doing support work. And then we, as Persia, get access to the Iranian armored cavalry, which are decent medium cavalry. Oh, apparently the class is heavy cavalry. I was thinking they were medium cavalry. And then we have some... And one of our armies has cataphracts. The cavalry down here have cataphracts that we were able to pick up from some places. Iranian armored cavalry, Armenian cataphracts, which are basically heavy cavalry but with a range attack. In theory, we had the ability to train regular cataphracts, but we didn't actually need to replace any cataphracts yet. This province up here has the Armenian cataphracts. And it's a fairly large province, although it's Armenia, so that you have to convince the Armenians to play along. That's these guys. And again, these guys get progressively more expensive the more you recruit. Whereas the generic cataphracts, you have to get the cataphractari, which is a national wonder to build them, but at least you can build as many of those as you want. And then that's the one that builds the national cataphractari. As far east as we're unusual in that we do not get elephant troops by default. We did build the building that would provide us with elephant troops. That's what this is normally. Most nations that get elephant troops, this would provide your elephant troops. However, if you're a nation that does not get generic elephant troops, this does not provide a unit. It just provides ivory like it normally does. Although then we probably could have tried to go out of our way to get some provincial elephant troops. And yeah, so that combination worked pretty well for taking over a bunch of territory. Trade good-wise, sort of the standard motions going through the trade good stuff. You often want to make sure that you've got papyrus everywhere. Papyrus is generally a good thing to own for export, whether it's export to your own territories or export to foreign territories, because lots of very useful buildings either need it, in the case of the whole school. The school line, for example, needs it, so you can move it around with the schools. And it's a decently expensive item, right? It's 6 trade value, so if you're importing it to yourself, you pay 3 and get 6 to move it. If you're selling it to someone else, they pay 6, you get 6. And that's before commerce modifiers. Alright, so this place net is currently... It's got 5 that it's trading, and we're getting 26 net money here. because we're exporting it to ourselves 5 times, right? So, the commerce modifier. Oh, actually, no, we have a negative commerce modifier here. That's why it's sub 30. Normally 5 would be 30. We have a negative commerce modifier here. I don't know why we have a negative commerce modifier there. Interesting. We do. I'm not sure why. It's not going to be a good breakdown of where that negative modifier is coming from, but we have a negative modifier here for whatever reason. Is this a national modifier? Is stacking up giving me a negative somewhere? Yes, I have a national modifier that's applying it. Okay. Ah, war willingness. Okay, we had some stacking war willingness penalties from being in fairly large numbers of wars. I think we had like 1 turn of peace the entire game. But yeah, so Papyrus, usually want to seek out and have Papyrus to export. There's one that's doing a little bit better. Obviously, in our early expansion, the deltas of the Mesopotamian Delta and the Egyptian Delta just naturally have Papyrus. The other way to get Papyrus is if you get up to the tier 3 agriculture building line, the final level of the well system, so it's well, irrigation system, irrigation canal, the final level provides with Papyrus, so that's how you can get Papyrus in places you normally wouldn't have it naturally. So that's another good way to make a bunch of money is make Papyrus. Sometimes you can even go ahead and make them on your borders. The AI over here wasn't really taking advantage of it, but you can, if you can make Papyrus near other people, they'll sometimes buy your Papyrus from you. As you can see over here, these guys over here are in fact buying Papyrus, I believe. Or did one of the neighbors make their own Papyrus? Nope, they're importing our Papyrus, yeah. Another good one I wasn't able to take much advantage of was gold. There's various ways to move gold around. You can see we've actually got quite a bit of gold importing down here into our sort of capital region. And then nuts and stuff. You also get a lot of value on wood, right? So if you're in a region that doesn't actually have a lot of wood, wood buildings are a building that can frequently be very easily built. If you can get up to tier 2 infrastructure, the land expansion and its upgrades need wood, so that's a way to move wood around and make a lot of money that way. And wood's fairly easy to source. You can source it anywhere by getting a wood cutting. So that's another good way to make a bunch of money is buy and sell wood basically internally. You can do the same sort of thing with iron. Iron's a little bit harder to find if you don't have it, but you can always move it around with furnaces. So if you're within trade range of an iron deposit, you can use furnaces to make money off the iron. And then sort of build-wise, I do tend to recommend getting the good old-fashioned salt house and cattle. So right, there's an example of a place importing cattle. I'm not sure where it's coming from. There's one of my cattle supplying places, right? So that's everywhere we're exporting cattle to. 5 different places is exporting cattle to. Similar sort of stuff you can do with salt. Salt's pretty in demand. And pretty abundant as well, right? So that's a natural source of salt, providing salt to 2 different places. That's what makes the smokehouse and the salt house very valuable. They provide food, they provide health, and assuming you have salt and cattle within your own nation, they provide basically money by moving the salt and cattle around. And yeah, moving goods around is a good way to make more revenue. You can kind of do the same with wine. You can see the wine there is making pretty decent money. And trade is sort of the secret way in this game to make a lot of money, even if you're not necessarily having to build a lot of commerce buildings. Though not all the resources are very easy to move, right? So you can't move fish, you can't move sulfur. Cattle is a big one. In fact, cattle is annoying sometimes because cattle is nice to move around, but at the same time, you have to be careful not to build branches everywhere, because otherwise you just start producing your own revenue. Because you'd rather move it around with the smokehouse instead. Because you get money from moving things, you don't get money from using local resources. The regions down here do have some frankincense that we were making some decent use out of. I think there is some myrrh around here. Obviously, frankincense and myrrh are sort of resources from this area. Swap the overlay back on. Can I find the myrrh quickly? Not sure if we had a native source of myrrh, or if I was always importing that. There's myrrh. We did have at least one native source of myrrh. Although I didn't necessarily have any place to import it. Oh, there's another thing of myrrh. Okay, so there was a way to move myrrh around. We weren't necessarily doing a very good job of moving myrrh around because it only moves away at the Secret Cult and Necropolis. Frankincense is a little bit easier because you move it around with the basilicas. But those are some pretty valuable resources when you can move them around. Marble you can move around. Marble is also something you can pretty reliably get everywhere you need it. So if you want to move it around, you can move it around. You can move flax and hemp around. So hemp moves around with the ports. It makes it a little bit harder to move around. And then... where is flax? I can show. Flax obviously moves around with... Hemp moves around with the arbor. Flax? I'm pretty sure I have some flax somewhere. I'm pretty sure the flax, for example, can get moved around with the spinning mill. So what? It's cotton, wool, and flax. You can move around the various different types of spinning mill. Of course, those you can pretty much build everywhere if you need them. So, there we go. There's the flax. So you can see we basically, by various methods, and moved flax mostly everywhere. There's a couple places we don't have it. Oh, it's also needed by the training ground, right? So the training ground and the barracks line is something you kind of want to build. Well, at least the training ground you want to build everywhere. So you don't necessarily want to build flax everywhere. You want to build flax such that your training grounds always have some to import. So spread them out, spread your flax out, and then make money moving them around the trading grounds, which is a zero slot building. So try to take advantage of the buildings that can move your stuff around. That's one good way to make money. Yeah, and you can see commerce. So moving stuff around regionally, I think, is making up like 2/3 of our money income. Although again, I'm not entirely sure whether the buildings here classes as tax or commerce. I think this is tax income. Yeah, so this region is getting no income from the population, but it's getting 20 from structures, 15 from exports. And by that, we're making 25 tax, overall 35. Yeah, so that's this run. Hope you've all enjoyed if you've watched the entire run. If you've only just been watching the recent bit, I hope you've been enjoying sort of this after-action report. If you're watching on Twitch, if you've got any comments you want responded to, or want to see any of the particular stats, feel free to let me know, and I'll go ahead and look at them in a moment. If you're watching on YouTube, I hope you've been enjoying. This is obviously where this series is ending. Again, if there's any specific stats or whatever you want to see, feel free to let me know. I can always go ahead and bring this up and make a short video of looking at those particular stats. And yeah, so if you've got any suggestions on what else you'd like to see played on the channel, feel free to let me know. Use to say if you're watching this on YouTube, I will presumably have picked the immediate replacement for this for the next recording slot by the time you're watching this. But for the next thing, if you've got something you want to see, feel free to let me know. Same thing if you're watching on Twitch. If you want to see something run on the channel, with this done, I'm now going to be looking for a new game to play in 3 days. So if you've got suggestions, feel free to let me know. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and wish you all the best of luck and a good time. And until next time, bye for now.